Welcome back. You're watching Standpoint here on Morning Prime. I'm holding court this morning with Danson Mungatana, who's a senator for Tana River. We have also Senator Kongo Mogani, who is a senator for Nyamira, senior council as well. We have David Cheng, also an advocate of the High Court and a member of Parliament for Ugenya. We do have with us as well Farah Malim, who is member of Parliament for Dadaab. And the subject at hand this morning is that ticklish issue of the return of the Shamba system. Was it really called for? Was that a broadside declaration that was met by the Deputy President, or he had issued an order? And this is where we are debating right now. We've heard from the environmentalists who are really coming out, of course, strongly condemning this move that in the cusp of what the world is facing right now with climate emergency, we should put every effort out there to make sure that we have at least 10% forest coverage in this country, which sometimes we've not really hit that particular mark. Before we took a short break, we were listening from Danson Mungatanam. I want to get reactions right now from Okongo Mogani. First of all, when you heard this particular declaration, what was your reaction?
I just thought we were back to the Kanu days when more used to make pronouncements by the roadside, which are not well thought out and which can be very disastrous. First, I want to pass my condolences, to be fair, to the DP for the loss of his brother Jack. Yes. I know he's mourning, so first I say my heartfelt condolences to him and the family for losing his brother as he's mourning. But I think when I saw that, I first reflected and said, wow, the DP thinks he's still on a campaign mode. And he doesn't appreciate that we are in a constitutional democracy where we have a constitution, we have laws, we have a cabinet that passes some of these very key policy changes. So it's not like he's landed in a jungle where you wake up and say anything. You just say, I've made a directive that people should go back to farming, because those to farm in forests, because those forests are under the Kenya Forest. We have a national conservator of forests who is in charge of those forests. When you want to invade those forests, you must deal with that gentleman. And I'm saying this having served as chair of anti-corruption, when we worked very closely with that office to recover several hectares of Karura forest that had gotten into private hands. So such a declaration by the DP, which really does not have very good administrative arrangements that loops in Kenya forests, can have a very negative result, because people just wake up and say our deputy president has said we should go and farm in forests, and you will find them there, and removing them becomes another challenge. And you know that the issue of attaining 10% forest cover is actually covered in our constitution. I think Article 69 obligates us as a country, Kenya, to progressively work towards achieving a 10% forest cover. I think we are now at either 6 or 7% or thereabout. During independence, we were at 10. Then by 2009, having had Moi's regime for a while, it dropped down to 6%. So this is a matter that came from a cabinet. I think the pronouncement of stopping farming was made by a minister, having had very wide consultation, and in response to what we are seeing in climate change. I mean, you can see the drought we are facing. Right now, more than 31 counties are facing serious drought. All this is because of climate change. The floods you are seeing in many countries out there. So the threat posed by climate change is real. It's not fiction. It's something that if we don't handle it well, it can have far-reaching negative implications. So I think my appeal to our DP Gachagua, he needs to realize that he's now part of government. He needs to learn that some of these pronouncements should not come from him just by making roadside declaration, but he should make his input before cabinet, they debate, and if a decision is made by cabinet, let the minister in charge come in to make a pronouncement in a way that is well thought out.
Thank you, David. Just briefly on it so that we can gloss over to other issues as well.
Okay, I hope I have a minute or two on the issue, because One, I want to say pole to the Deputy President. And number two, on the issue of the statement of Shamba system. I want to start by saying that our constitution and our laws now are so self-executing that a decision like the one that the DP is saying, is going to be made, has parameters within which it must be made. But even now is so clear about public participation, not just cabinet. Like the Honorable Mogeni has said, it's not just by cabinet decision. The decision to bring back the Shamba system will be a decision that will be made by Kenyans, because that's what the law now requires. People have to be spoken to. There must be a forum where people will be asked whether. I mean, we saw last year, early this year, the court said the position called CAS was illegal and that it can't be there going forward. You've seen what PSC has done the last week. They have gone back to the people and asked the people whether this position should be in the public service. So when the decision on Shamba system will definitely have to be sieved through our decision-making structures, including Parliament. It won't just go. I mean, the cabinet can decide that Shamba system comes back, but Parliament says no. So it will have to process through the normal structures of decision-making. But I wanted to put this question, Debal, that the concept of sustainable development requires that we look at all factors that could exist. I mean, who says Shamba system is a bad system? No. It had issues, and the issues around it that time were largely about corruption, not even environmental conservation. The issues largely about corruption, people coming in and then starting to claim part of the forest as their own. But if you want to create more forest cover, Debal, I believe that various methods would work for different regions. In Nyanza, where the region of Mugina and I come from, we don't even have the forests. We have to build new forests. We have to ensure that we plant more new trees. And at a personal level, Zamba can tell you that after Londiani Forestry College, the only other college being built in this country since independence on forestry and to ensure that there's more forest cover is in Uganda. We've been building one for the last 4 years, and I believe that every other method must be looked at and found to ensure that we improve and increase our forest cover. So I would look at the Deputy President's speech in that regard, that there could be, there's a desire, and that desire can only be effectuated by bringing everyone else on board and agree with Kalua that this is not a very light decision that can be made at a funeral. Thank you.
All right, but we had Wangara Madhaya really castigating, because you say you have no problem, can't see any issue with the Shamba system. He knew better that we'll have infiltration of eucalyptus tree, it's not really controlled. Also the change of what I've just raised before we took a short break, the biodiversity of and the ecological system of the forest itself will be adversely affected.
Before you go there, I think I told you this, I want you to think about this too. Sustainable development doesn't say that we cannot use the forests to benefit us. We can only we must use the forests to benefit our countries. The only thing we cannot do is to use the forest in a manner that undermines their existence, undermines their continued, help of the natural ecological systems. But we cannot say that we can use the forests if using them in a particular way would be gainful to us. I think that's what I would say on the issue.
All right, let's finalize it with Farah Malim.
Frankly, I don't know. I mean, the hunters and gatherers use the forest, and they enrich the forest itself. They make sure that the forest they live with the forest. Their sustenance is derived from the fact that the forest itself is flourishing. Now, is there sufficient scientific, and social studies that have been made into it to see how the Shamba system can coexist with the forest, but in a manner that essentially is beneficial to the forest, and we can get even a much bigger cover? Or is it a zero-sum game? They come in and then the forest loses, or the two cannot coexist at all? I don't know. I'm not a farmer. I don't come from a farming background, but I'm just asking this very loudly. There has to be a serious study that has to be made on this, based on both sociological or social as well as environmental look at this to see whether it actually can enrich it. If it can enrich it, then fine, but then in a prescribed manner. If it cannot enrich it and there's a serious sum gain, you bring in one, you lose the other, then we cannot lose our forest cover. We just have to increase it. And I think 10% is a very small amount. What we need is much bigger than that. Now, let me now ask you something that needs to be done. Do we just have to get forests in these areas where we have forests now? Can't we create forests in Northeastern Province? Can we create forests in parts of Nyanza, parts of Turkana? Is it not possible for us to plant 600 million trees because the Ethiopian is planted, I think, 8 billion or something like that? They billions and billions of trees they planted over a period of time in a sustained manner. Can we reclaim places like Northeastern Province so that we can have a forest cover that is big enough, and at the same time that can change even the rain pattern? Right now, as we're talking, we are experiencing both famine and drought. People are going to be dying soon if we don't get something done very fast by the government. Food is not delivered to the people in the next 2-3 days, then you can rest assured you'll begin seeing people dying of starvation. There's nothing. And animals have died. And animals have died because of our inability to plan. Dibal, let me tell you one thing. Animals perish because they go, you see, the area where there is the water points, the surrounding area is usually degraded because all the animals come to the water point, so there's no pasture there. So the animals have to come from far to access water and then go back again to far to access pasture. They die on the way. Cows cannot stay for too long. They die on the way. Camels can take a bit longer. So what I did myself in 2010-2011 drought is I hired 59 trucks, water boozers, and told my constituents and even the neighboring constituents to go to where the pasture is. Then we delivered water to the pasture. We lost zero. When other parts of the country were losing animals left, right, and center, we lost zero ourselves. So why can't such proven systems be used by the government? You have a county government there, which is supposed to be sitting on billions of shillings, but which has not helped in any way. We have a central government who will only respond to emergencies. Now they're responding. Now you see the president, the governors, international, everybody is shouting because people are faced with starvation. But you see, there has to be planning. There has to be a forward planning for some of these things. If you don't do that, then of course we lose. Like now, there was no need for us to lose millions of our own livestock now. There would have been mitigations in place to make sure that this is not lost. So whether you are looking at the increase of the forest cover in this country to change the rainfall pattern in certain areas, and the fact that we have ignored, our planners have ignored from the colonial time. You see, the colonials did not come into this country to improve it and develop it. They came in as extraction economy to take away from it. So they only went to the high potential areas. Then we had the session paper number 10 of 1965, which said intensification of those areas instead of extensification of the economy. Now, 60 years later, we still do the same. We're not getting any wiser. So I don't know. I don't want to castigate. I actually want to give him my condolences for the loss of his brother. But
the danger of it, even as we're winding up, is the fact that
the deputy president, I'm telling him, I'm condoling with him also for the loss of his own brother. But I don't want to castigate him just at face value. He definitely has a reason for saying what he's saying. Does he have ideas that essentially he can bring onto the table and say, look, maybe the forest cover can be increased, where if you can get the population also to be able to benefit from it, but at the same time enrich that. I don't know. He has ideas, I'm sure. Let's listen to him.
But looking at the politics of the day with the forest as well, and we also learning something from the Mau forest, when we had the indigenous, as they call them now, being evacuated from this particular forest. I think it was the Shamba system that really brought them to Mau forest in the first place. And so after many years also, you think that you have the loaded rights to own that particular piece of land because you've lived there for long. So it becomes a bit difficult also to evacuate these people from the forest at the end of the day. Maybe are we having any timelines? It will be a generation that is passed to another, and people think this is our land. I think this issue of forest can be politicized when it comes to another electioneering cycle, that it can become very dangerous.
I mean, in defense of what the DP said, His second part of the statement was that when the minister comes, there will be a schedule. So from what I'm thinking is that he has some ideas, like Honorable Farah Malima said, but those ideas must be placed vis-a-vis scientific thinking. So to address that particular question that you are raising, that when people come, they will feel that they own the land and they want title deeds and what, I think if we should go that way, if this debate goes the way that, okay, now Kenyans, we are agreeing we should go Shamba system, then it will be highly controlled, I think, when the minister is there. But as of now, I think the whole thinking is that with this climate change and what, it's not the way to go for now. I think that's how it is looking.
Right, thank you. Yeah. Thank you. So we'll leave it at that, unless you want to contribute.
The issue for me, Dibal, and you have to agree with what the name of Farah has said. Forests are conserved, and they're conserved by people. And if there's a way in which we can, for example, talk about Mao. The forest cover to begin with are community land and government land. So no one can claim ownership over it, no. Government can only provide for a system and a framework through which people can use the forest cover to get food for themselves as they conserve the forest. But there's no question about ownership. It can't arise. Yeah.
All right. It can't arise. Okongo Mogini?
You know, this program we are talking about, if you remember, I told you I was the chair of anti-corruption in 2007.
You were.
This program was started in 2005, but it was largely abused. And even that idea of saying you plant maize, what environmentalists were saying is, if you plant a tree and then you allow a farmer to plant maize, by the time the maize grows, the trees can't get sunshine, so they die. So it was the decision was made after a scientific study that found out that if you allow farmers to plant maize, then the program of increasing the forest cover was not working, because you plant a tree, when the maize grows, once it's up there, the tree is down here, the trees die. That's why it was stopped, and it was after a wide consultation involving the Kenya Forest Service officers, involving the government. So it was not a lopsided decision that was just made by the minister. And what was guiding the country is the need to increase the forest cover. So I really don't know. The ones who had favor at that time were potato farmers. Because then they were saying, look, our potatoes are just down here. They don't interfere with the tree that is growing. But the maize farming had a problem. Scientifically, it could not coexist with that idea of saying you plant trees, then allow farming, then they coexist. That was not working, and I don't know whether they will be. Maybe you can tell us, scientists, if there is a new way you can have the maize going up, and the tree that is down here is getting sunshine and it can grow. But during that time, we were told it was not working, and in the best interest of increasing our forest cover, that program ought to be stopped and the forest be protected.
Yeah. So that was the main reason why it was stopped.
That was the main reason, that it was not working. And then number two, you know, you are telling people to another problem.
Let's just see.
Another problem, Dibal, was, you know, you tell farmers that you stay here you do this farming for 2-3 years. You know, they were signing contracts. Yeah. You stay 2-3 years, after which we'll chase you away so that you leave the trees now to flourish. But after 3 years, the farmers were like, you allowed us to farm, we are poor people, where do you want us to go? So it became another political problem.
Yes.
As somebody was saying here, if you allow these farmers to invade the forest now, you are not going to remove them in 2027. It will become a hot political issue, and the farmers will now start crying, saying the government wants to chase us, this is our livelihood. People are saying our children have been feeding from this farming we do in this forest. So if you tell us that we ought to have stayed here for 3 years, where do you take us from here now? Where do we go? What do you do as a government? You find yourself in a fix where you are now tempted to say, like what is happening in the Mau. People are saying, you can't chase our people. Where do they go? You are being inhuman. It becomes another big problem.
Right.
Yeah, but you see, but the point is, if it adds value to the forest itself, the thing, you don't have to plant maize. Maize is out of question. If maize cannot work well with the increasing of the forest cover and at the same time giving sustenance to people living in there, then maize is out. But if other crops can be used, and at the same time the smallholders in there can enrich, and every smallholder can be told to plant, is it 10 trees or 20 trees or 30 trees every year, then why fix it? Why deny them later on the ownership? I mean, they're there to make a living out of it for as long as it takes. So why do you go with the preconception the first time that we will take them there for a short period of time and remove them later? These are not animals, these are human beings, these are Kenyans. So if they can coexist, then they own it. But they own it with conditions. I mean, even when you get a title to a property or a land, there are conditions in there. You cannot, develop that land in the manner you want. But if something can be found, a way can be found in which, and I use the word enrich, increase the forest cover by having smallholders in there who are going to only engage in certain specific life sustenance things, specific ones that will not conflict with the forest cover. Only then is when you allow to coexist. I told you the hunters and gatherers, they lived very well with our forests in the past, and they were never threats to the forest. You see what I mean? Now, if you can find their crops that can be, like for example, I hear about the potatoes. Yes, because you see, when these big trees grow like this, you can't pack them into like sardines. A big tree grows, and then under there always there's certain things that you can do under the tree. If you can coexist by planting something that can sustain those farmers in there. At the same time, you keep on increasing the forest cover, you keep on having more trees in there, and these people will be there to protect this environment and coexist with it and get a livelihood from it. Then why change it?
Thank you. Well, let's leave it at that.
But the biggest threat, Jabal, to this system wasn't even these things we're talking about. The biggest threat to this system was corruption.
Well, by big guys who wanted to have big farms. That's the problem. Yes.
It wasn't really about...
These were big men who wanted to, hide big, what do you call, pieces of...
Within the forest.
The biggest issue was logging, illegal logging.
And illegal logging also.
And people coming to claim that we've been planting here, so it's going to be ours. But if we agree, like I told you, that forests are gazetted government land, and you have a system through which people don't live in the forest. You're not saying guys are going to live in the forest. No. The forest is I&M building. People live in Kariako or whatever place. They come work the forest and go back home. They don't live here. And there's a system through which you say that this part of the forest will be planting for 3-4 months. You do your farming 3-4 months. Then move to the other part of the forest. You don't live here. You get more trees. When the trees get to another level, you don't...
So how come we had squatters in the Mau forest?
Yeah?
Well, how come we had...
But that's what I'm making. That's what I'm making here. That the moment they were allowed to start doing the planting, then we come in as politicians and say that, you've been living there, now remain there, you can't be removed from there. Yeah. I mean, as a country, we also have to...
Why remove them if they can coexist in the first place?
We have to be able to do things in a honest manner, in a manner that I told you earlier, sustainable, and people be explained to that this is how best we think this forest can be conserved. Not just for conservators, not just foresters, but people live around the forest. This is a natural resource, and it should help. Natural resources should not be set in such a way that they're untouchable. If the forest can help, it's like the lake. If they can help human beings. We've seen severally, like Naivasha, like Victoria, there are times when you say that this 5-6 months, there will be no fishing of omena. And there's a way of ensuring that no one does omena. Or we don't allow this kind of nets in this part of the lake. It can be done with the forest. So that we coexist with the natural resource. It serves us, we serve it. Absolutely. That's what I would say on this.
This process, what time will you have for that, even that particular forest to replenish? It's been cultivated over and over.
So it's already there.
Even just for...
If you don't log, and the logging is done by big, what do you call, corporations, by the way, with very strong connections. You know, the people who do the logging.
But we're looking at the nutritive value of a soil.
Why Kenya Forest was giving farmers, they were signing contract with them.
Yes.
They tell you'll be here for 3 years. It's the Kenya Forest that gives the farmers the trees. These are like pine trees.
Yes.
Where you can't say that they coexist for forever.
Yes.
The thinking is that after 3 years, the trees have grown,
yes.
so you vacate and move.
Yes.
But you see now, after 3 years, Kenyans mean what they are. They tell you, you allowed us to come here and do farming. You can't tell us to move away.
But the trees have grown right now.
Yeah. Yet the intention was that we keep you here for 3 years. Once the trees have grown, you move out. It's the farm, yeah. Kenya Forest gives you the seedlings.
After the 3 years,
you plant the trees.
Yes.
In return, they allow you to cultivate that farm for the next 3 years.
After 3 years,
yes. So when the trees reach a level,
you move out. You're not supposed to be there forever. You need to understand this. So it's not like this forest is there.
I still don't get you, because if the trees are growing and these people are putting potatoes under there, so why would you remove them if the trees grow?
You see, Dibal, once the trees have gone up, the sunshine will not even reach your crops.
Well,
so there's no way.
Now, the potatoes.
Whether it's potato, whether
you cannot do the
for me, the day they opened the forest, instead of allowing the KFS to do it, Omogeni and I and the Ulamamba hapa will bring his people saying watu wangu tumewapatia tumewafungulia forest mwende mlime. Allow the institutions that are concerned to deal with it. It's better that way. I wouldn't want to close my mind to this thing politically or
from my point of view, the DP has brought this thing for debate.
Yes.
We should understand it in that
context,
stakeholders should come in and put in their best foot forward. And there is no, as of now, there is no presidential declaration. There is nothing has been signed. There's no seal. But the debate is there, and you can hear all these brilliant ideas from my colleagues here in Parliament. And I'm telling you, once we have people thinking and talking around these things, and the minister is on point, then if the consensus is that we go back to the Shamba system, it will be done in an organized way. If the consensus by Kenyans is that it's too risky, then we will move away and look for other ways of increasing the forest cover and feeding those people who are living within near the forests. I think that's the way we should think about it.
All right. Let's just wind it up, and we try and flip over to page 2 of a Star. There's a very interesting editorial cartoon.
Can I just say something
please
before you flip up? Why can't you see the problem we have, Dibal, even in our media systems in this country? You talk to us here when we know very little about. Why don't you go to the ground itself and talk to the real farmers? People have been aching their livelihoods from there, and who believe that they have the answers to the questions we're asking ourselves because they lived it. You get my point?
Yeah.
You see, we tend to look everything within that elitist spectacle itself. And as a politician, as a media person yourself, as somebody in Nairobi, go down to those people and tell them, how can you coexist with the forest? You'll be surprised. You'll get very, very fine ideas that you can't get from this crowd here. You get my point? I'm serious. With all our experience, political experience, and the experience of Omogeni in ESCC, and my good friend here was his own party, and has already joined UDA. But
we joined Kenya Kwanza.
But Rosem as a party leader.
We joined Kenya Kwanza and proudly so.
I have no problem with it. I have no problem with it. In fact,
this is where
he has an influence. He has a powerful influence right now. He's in the center of things. He's in Kenya Kwanza. So why don't you get this information? Then we create that, what you call a body of knowledge that comes from the grassroots that we can use to try and understand our people and see if we can help them. Because the assumption that me and you have the answers is wrong.
That's true.
All right. Okay. Yeah. Mashinani is where we can get the answers.
Absolutely.
As well, down on the ground. But you raise a very important question to Mheshimiwa here, David Ocheng, and he needs to tell us then, he's in Kenya Kwanza.
He abandoned me in One Kenya Alliance. He was together with me in One Kenya Alliance. He's one of the architects.
We also addressed with him, remember the last days forming Mombasa.
Yes.
So it's right to say abandoned him.
You abandoned.
Yeah.
What was your
Without notice.
Without notice. Without notice. Without notice. What was the rhyme and reason for you actually to just bulk?
You know,
Belt.
Yes, I did it one, if I may say it stupidly, that I could do it. I did it because I could do it. But number two, it's a fact that.
All right.
It's a fact that.
So you know, there's the contentions now, Article 108.
Yes, I'm going to come to that. But please, the boys remember that I told you, hosted us with the Honorable Farah here, and the Honorable Kongo here, and the Honorable Makali Mulu. And first of all, joining Azimio was so difficult, and as Farah would tell you, extremely difficult. During the last days, but where I come from, it was never accepted. And so in the campaigns, you would hear the Big Brother party saying that Azimio ends at Awasi. I don't know if you know where Awasi is.
The river Awasi?
No, Awasi is a town. It's a border town between border town near Hero. From Rift Valley, getting into Nyanza, you cross Awasi and then you get into Nyanza. So senior politicians, everybody in the other party would say that in Nyanza there's no other party. This thing we're calling Azimio ends in Ahero. And so in the campaigns, we had 30, 20, 40 MPs coming from a constituency every election period, saying, no, you vote for David Ochieng, voting Madawadawa. The party voted for this other one. So why would I be so important after winning, but before I win, I'm Madawadawa? And even after I won the election, they were still saying that, it's a mistake. To have elected Ochieng in his party in Nyanza, you should have elected somebody, a guy in this other party. And so basically, from the word go, there was no sense of belonging. Now, let me repeat this to you.
So no sense of belonging after the election?
No,
prior to the election, there was a sense of belonging.
Accepting.
Even after we joined Azimio, it was always clear that how did he join? Or was he allowed to join? Okay? The hostility against our candidates in Nyanza especially was palpable. We were never allowed to go to any rally in Nyanza with our candidate for president.
But after you bolted, we saw reactions.
So I just want to explain this to you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because I think if you look at this contextually, in 2007, 2016 when I started the party called NDG, I saw some reactions. In 2016, people made noise. Why is he leaving the party of the community and forming his own party? So you must always have the long game at the ball. So 2016 started the MDG, went to the elections. The same thing that I saw happening in 2022 happened. I was vilified everywhere, but I said, no, I'm not going to budge. So the election was stolen in 2017. We went to court, remember? High Court, Court of Appeals, Supreme Court. We won all through the election was stolen. In 2019, I was running against the Handshake Brothers in the by-election. In 2019, I will tell you, we had 60, 70 MPs coming to my constituency every day in the by-election campaigns. After I won the election and came to Nairobi, I was like, I'm in the opposition. So I joined the opposition benches even after fighting with them. I joined NASA in the opposition, 2019. 6 months later, the BAL, after I joined the opposition ranks, and Uru and Ruto were fighting and they were purging members from the committees. From nowhere, without provocation, because he said the Ochieng is part of the Ruto wing and we can't allow him to have committees. So the BAL for 3 years, I served in parliament without any single committee because NASA thought I didn't belong to them. So I win the by-election, come to parliament, still give you friendship even if you fought me. You win from committees. So 3 years I never had. So then elections come 2022. I said, no, I will still hang out with you guys even if you don't want me. I decided to side with you. Then you come to my constituency, no less than the candidate himself for president, and says, no, and an ODM member is Madawadawa. So I fight my way through. I win. I come back and in a meeting that I attend, I'm still being called Madawadawa. I have no regrets. I think while joining Kenya Kwanza was a good decision in the circumstances, and I would do it twice over, thrice over if a chance arose. Because, and this decision that I made, and I hope you still remain in KTN and will be managing it at that time in 2032. You will see the decision you made in 2022 was the best decision. I want to leave it at that.
Yeah, we can understand.
Presidential candidate.
We can understand. It's a democracy, and I think under the circumstances.
I was with the Honorable Ochieng, when we convened as Azimio, and I didn't see any hostility. We had a very nice meeting at KICC.
Were you the campaigns?
I was not at the campaigns, but I'm actually surprised that he didn't feel there was a sense of belonging. because we were together at KCC, and I thought we all belonged to one family called Azimio. But I thought, being alone, you should have given us a notice. You know, we had an agreement. We said you will not divorce us.
But I did give a notice.
We said you will divorce us after three months.
After 3 months?
Days, after which you will give us a notice. That's the only disappointment I have with you.
Because you're not a party leader, so you would not know how these things were done, negotiated and all that. So
you should have at least followed the...
We did give a notice, Debal.
Okay.
Yeah, we give a notice. The only thing we disagree with is the fact that, I mean, what is the difference between me leaving today and leaving in 30 days or in 90 days?
It's because of the
if you look at the way coalitions work,
of deed of agreement that you didn't sign.
If you look at the way coalitions work,
That's the difference.
That in itself was unconstitutional.
If you look at the way coalitions work, Debal, the way coalitions work, and coalitions are not things that you tie someone to by some article that says that you cannot leave. Coalitions are negotiated, and people go to coalitions willingly. Israel, if you look at Israel, in the last 5 years, it has had 4 governments. Because one partner says, I don't want, tomorrow government falls. That's the way it works even in the UK. You've seen that in the last few months. So the idea here is this, that there are things you cannot force politically. Like, you know, the laws that we have in the country determine when someone must join a party and when you can resign. The law says that if you want to run independent, you must get out of a party 90 days to elections. The law says that if you want to run in a party, you must be in a party at least 120 days before the elections. The laws that relate to belonging to a party and mostly relate to joining before for administrative purposes. Like, you know, if you join later, it will be difficult to administer. But what is this reason that would require that you remain in a coalition, however much it is badly for you, for 90 days, so that you achieve what? It's irrational, it's unreasonable, and unconstitutional.
Right, but right now it's very critical for ODM, and I want Mungatana to just weigh in on this as well. Article 108 is what we've been discussing since last week. We are waiting also, I think, the determination of the courts in regard to this. You moved to the courts, actually, Kenya Kwanza, right? So, first of all, Kenya Kwanza is a coalition of parties.
That's right.
And Azimio is a coalition party.
It's a party,
right? It's a coalition party.
Yes.
And Kenya Kwanza is a coalition of parties. And this is where now people are really splitting here, because it's very critical right now. And I want us just to get an understanding on 108, because this debate began last year, and I believe I could see some problem also from the forum between Oteda Molo also and Aaron Cheriot. And I thought this is just a matter of semantics. Now we can see the reality of it is dramatically different. It's a coalition of parties, and it's a coalition party. And now ODM says, or Azimio claims it has majority in the House because it's a coalition party. And you are a coalition of parties.
Yes.
How then does Article 108, which says here that the leader of majority shall be the person who is a leader in the National Assembly of the second largest party or coalition of parties?
Let me just weigh in my thoughts on that. Strictly speaking, and it may not be very politically viable, but the Azimio coalition party does not have a single elected MP in the House. Does not have a single elected...
If it's a party.
It's a party. It is not if. In fact, the only candidate they have is the presidential candidate who didn't make it. But he does not have...
So as it stands, we don't have any member of parliament.
You know, strict legal interpretation
yes.
will have these, my learned friends and whatever, in problems. And you know, there is politics and there is a law. In law, there's no emotion, there's no what, it is just the law. It doesn't look at things, other things that are outside the law. That is why, strictly from, you know, understanding the status quo, what is currently holding, we would not want, under the ideal situation, to come into a disagreement and fights and over this matter. If people have moved, let us agree that they have moved. Let us deal with the political reality. I was sitting with Senator Governor Ali Roba, who was the UDM party leader. And they have gone to court also separately. And he was telling us, just here in Naivasha, the experiences, not very dissimilar to what my learned friend, Mr. Ochieng, is narrating here. Very difficult circumstances under which they signed the collision agreement, asking what is inside, being denied access and what. And afterwards, even after he said of his own words, I tried to reach this one and the other political party leaders, and they didn't treat me well. So I walked out, and nobody is going to force me to go back there. So if you take now that gentleman's position, and he has MPs, Honorable Ochieng's position, he is in the studio, he has MPs, and today you say, no, you are still Azimio. No, let's just be realistic. So the court, when it hears his matter and makes its determination, they will make it clear that you cannot force people into agreements. That is really wrong, anti-constitutional. And I'm thinking myself, let us go to our core mandate. We have the numbers, let's govern. They have the lesser numbers, let them put us on the spot for failed promises, failing to execute our duties. That is what we want. That's what we want. You see, today, I'm just giving this example. When Kalua stood there and really talked as a party leader on the issue of the forests, everybody's listening. Now imagine if he was in the House. You know, you have a very good debate on an issue that is clearly very important, and who wins? It's the people who win at the end of it. But if we start, fighting over small things, who is called what, then the people lose, because the same energy could have been applied to the more productive work of leading government and opposition doing their work to keep the government in check.
Yeah. So, Okongo Mogini, so as it stands, you as a coalition party, as Azimio, you have no member of parliament at all in the National Assembly.
I mean, Azimio, if you read the amendments to the political parties, it said that you can have a coalition, can be a political party, or political parties can come together and form a coalition. So for presidential candidate, our candidate ran through Azimio political party. For the various elective positions, including MDG, which was a partner in the Azimio coalition, these are the parties that came together and formed the Azimio coalition, including the party that sponsored my friend Farah. So we came together and formed the Azimio coalition. And in paper, that is the majority party in the National Assembly. In the Senate, I think it could have been more by one for UDA, and then Omutata becomes an independent if UDM did not bolt. But then they say, there's this English saying, it says that victory has many friends, but defeat is an orphan. I'm telling you, if Raila Odinga had won presidency, all these parties will still be under the Azimio coalition. But because the presidents went the route away, most of these parties are running away to join William Ruto because they think they will have an advantage being on government side, including Captain, former Governor of Mandera, Captain Roba. It's just people wanting to be seen that they are close to government. But if you ask me, we are really losing a big opportunity to have experimented a situation where you have a president who has won the executive, but having an opposition that has majority in parliament, so that is put on check. But now everybody wants to run to government, deserting opposition as if it is a crime, being a member of opposition. I think we really need to appreciate as a country that being a multi-party democracy, there will always be the government side and the opposition side. And so that our people trust us, so that we bring some integrity to this process, the electioneering process. It is a gamble. If I choose to run on ODM in the hope that we'll form government, if we don't form government, I should be contented and saying I'll step in and play my role as a member of the opposition. But now the culture we are creating, which I'm telling you will not be permitting in every electoral circle, is that people will form parties, they join a coalition, then they wait immediately after an election. They approach the other side and say, we are now joining you to be part of government. In essence, my view is we are killing democracy, we are killing multipartyism. We are not going to have a strong democracy like what we see in the US, where if the Democrats win, they will always say that we are waiting to capture this thing in another 4 years. But here people are saying, if I lose, I join the other side. 5 years. I join the other side so that I immediately join government. With due respect, I don't think it's a good way of nurturing our democracy. We are in essence killing our democracy.
Thank you. David Chen.
When we talk about governance, it's politics, Dubal. And I wish Honorable Pongo had the similar views, because from the 9th of March 2018, I hope you know what happened on the 9th of March 2018.
The handshake.
Yes. The party that is called ODM was probably almost in government totally, but they refused to leave the minority benches. And it was a terrible thing for 3.5 years. So what is good for the gander must be good for the goose too. If you were to have that argument, that it can't only be democracy when other people leave. And you, when you leave and join government, it's not democracy. It can't be that way.
It is democracy.
Yeah, we cannot prove that and be proved at the same time. But I wanted to just come back to the argument on the table, Debala. Let's accept the fact that Azimio was a Jubilee ODM coalition. And invited others to join. If you look at that argument, it'll tell you, because you look at the article, I think 24, 23, it'll tell you that the two main parties, Azimio and Jubilee, decided in the agreement and said that the first officials of the party, the first neck of the party, all this will be decided by the two leaders of those two parties. So as we joined, we just signed, and we were signing the last pages. I'm a lawyer and I should not be saying this, but we signed just the last pages. But then the biggest issue, and the reason someone would leave a coalition like this one, is what you've been told. You join because you want to work together. You join a coalition because you want, it's like a marriage, you want to live together. You want to make it work. But if you join and from the day you join,
it doesn't work.
From the day you join, it is not working. I mean, you're talking about why did you join? The agreement says that it shall be deposited in the registrar 6 months of elections. We deposited 5 months. He didn't invalidate it. But number two, it for me is important for Thursday this week and the days to come, is that there are three things we missed when we passed the amendment to the Political Parties Act. I don't know if you ever asked this question. Why in 2013, CORD, and 2017, NASA, our very able leader, Jacom, could not run as a candidate of CORD or as a candidate of NASA? Because the law couldn't allow it. So this law that we passed, one of the reasons we passed the amendments in 2022 was to allow the Azimio candidate to run as a candidate, because he could not run in the coalition name. So you have to also accept, you also have to understand why Azimio was made a political party. So that the candidates could run as such. It was not meant to be a political party, so to speak, in the real sense of the word. And number two, and these are legal points that we're going to be arguing both in court and in parliament, is that I believe that we would have done both in Azimio at that time. We would have registered Azimio as a political party, but also registered Azimio as a coalition of parties. It would have been better if it is that way, that Azimio exists on two fronts. As a political party, in which case there are, for example, the presidency and all these people, and as a coalition of parties for the purpose of majority in parliament.
Thank you.
I think we missed out on that. But finally, on the issue also is a question I want to ask. So MDG has left, UDM has left, PA of Amason Kingi, MCCP of Zambo Mutua wanted to leave Azimio 2 months before elections. 2 months. They campaigned with William Ruto as president. Why do you insist that the members of parliament must be in Azimio? Because these guys expressed interest to leave much earlier. Why do you want to insist? They didn't even campaign with you.
Right. Let's say from Farah, even as we prepare to wind up as well. Farah?
Well, personally, to be honest with you, I subscribe myself to the universal, very popular mode of coalition working or constructs within the developed and developing countries. I don't subscribe to any contract anywhere. These coalitions are supposed to be made and broken on the day. You have a policy today, we cannot agree on this policy, walk out of you. You're a minority. I remember the SDPs for a very long time used to work with the Christian Democrats, CDU, in Germany, with Hans Genscher, I don't know if you remember, and others. And with only 5%, they were able to control finance and foreign affairs and a number of things. And when they couldn't get along on certain major policy matters, they walked out. And they sometimes froze an election, because then the government does not have the numbers, they decrease the numbers. So for us, this business of trying to run democracy in the manner that a certain political elite anytime wants it is wrong, because we're looking at these things for posterity. Coalitions should not be made before the election. Let the elections continue, let everybody fight for power. When you have not grabbed the kind of power that you wanted, then join a coalition and say, we're now coming together. And that's how a parliamentary system, ours is a bit of a tricky thing, because we're trying to use a parliamentary system, which was the traditional, and we're also trying to go the pure democratic, pure presidential executive, yes, which is a mistake. And I kept on saying this, even those days, that look, you can't try and pick up the best thing from a parliamentary system, the best thing from a presidential, the best thing that you think serves you very right, and then you put it together. It doesn't work. It's like trying to pick up a gearbox from a Suzuki, and you get an engine from a Mercedes, and another one from another car, Audi, and think that this thing can work. It can't work. These things have got to work in a very structured, very systematic manner, and we don't have to reinvent the wheel again. Let's all go run for politics. If we want to create a coalition before the elections, fine. Create that coalition, but on a certain, what do you call, ground rules, and work together through that. You lose, stay in the opposition for as long as it takes. Go out there. But don't say that, oh, I joined this coalition, but they did not want to work with me. And you only realize that they did not want to work with you after they have lost the election. Like what my good friend Joe Cheng is saying. After they have lost the election is when you realize you should have made this decision actually. It doesn't work that way. There are lots of things that we are right now persevering in our coalition that we don't like. But because you've already taken that position from the beginning, hang in there and give a very effective. And I don't understand one thing, Dibal. What does a member of parliament in this parliament need the government of the day for? Let me ask you. We're going to get back the CDF fund, I can assure you. If the judiciary thinks they can take it away, they'll never be able to take it away. You have a CDF fund. You can develop your constituency if you're an honest person in the best possible way. We have the best salaries right now. Don't be cheated. There's a good amount of money. It's not like in 1993, 94, where on a Thursday afternoon, there will be only a handful or 15 of us left in the chamber. Everybody else has gone to State House to be given the small handouts for them to go and visit their constituents. It's different now. So why do you need to run around? Use your own ideological persuasion. You don't need to be. You don't need to be anywhere.
Thank you. Yeah. 30 seconds. Let's wind up. We are paged for time.
Yes. My take on that issue is that let's just allow freedom. You know, let the market forces in politics operate. And here the market forces are, where are my people? Are my people and my party in this matter? Are we happy where we are? If we are happy, then let us stay. If we are not happy, let us walk. I think like it works in other European democracies. Let's not force people. I think what I'm feeling bad about this whole thing is forcing members of parliament to associate with a group when they don't want.
Thank you. Okay, quickly. 30 seconds.
I think we have spoken enough politics. Mine is to really appeal to the government to ensure that it has intervention measures for Kenyans who are facing drought and starvation.
Yes, indeed.
We really don't need to lose life. So I really hope that can be top on the agenda of the government of the day.
I think that's a better place to leave it. Thank you so much.
It's terrible. It's terrible. People are going to die. And the government should not just, pass the buck and say the governors. What do the governors have? Most of the governors came into an empty coffers. Some of them, even the statutory money was stolen by the previous governments.
Thank you.
And basically they have nothing, nowhere else to go.
Gentlemen.
The accounts are closed in the central bank.
Yes. And Ebola also is just around the corner, neighboring Uganda.